Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, our Simple Abundance year for 2020 with Sarah Von Braunick's book, Simple Abundance. So, do you guys hear waves in the background? I was thinking since that video about the summer decorating, I'm setting up potentially like a beach flavor for the summer. There's so many things that you can get on various streaming services and YouTube. Just sounds. Even if you don't have birds, like with all my bird feeders that you saw, and you want to have bird sounds, you can look that up and find those. Wind chimes. It's really, the possibilities are endless. And maybe in the middle of winter you want to hear those spring and summer sounds. I just wanted to mention that. I almost didn't do a video today, honestly, because I'm not having a great day. It's gotten better, and I'm doing better than I was last night, but I'm easily emotionally triggered, and something happened last night, and it takes me about 3 days to really recover. Hopefully I am doing a little bit better than that, and I will be, well, I am really very much looking forward to our fun little fairy tea party tomorrow night. So that's something fun to look forward to, and I promise you, whether I'm feeling 100% or not, I will definitely give you my all. And I look forward to seeing you guys again. That is Tuesday, June 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Time here live on my channel. It's just a fun little fairy tea party, and you'll be able to chat with me real time. So tune in. Today's entry in Sarah's 2019 edition that we're following through is called Still Life. Stilled Life. And she's talking about the form of art where there's a painting of like a bowl of fruit or something like that. I bet you know what that is. And she's encouraging us to think about our homes, not that we're going to paint them like that, but that we can set up our own little stilled life sort of sprinklings. She mentions again about what she told us in the spring about bringing branches in so that they have blossoms on them. So adding that to a vase on the mantle, or she even tells us about making a little collage on your bedroom dresser with your favorite black heels and some perfume. And so you're basically setting up these little things, like maybe similar to what I have on the counter for the season, where I put the flowers out, and maybe I'm going to change the vases that I use to be something seasonal focused. So have you ever thought about doing something like that? I don't know. Oh, we have a kitty in the background. That is never a stilled life right there. She's always doing something. And I think she was chasing a fly or something just then. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. I guess, I was going to say, I think I do maybe some of this unknowingly as far as the placement of things in my house. But she's telling us to be thinking about ways that you can set up little stilled life scenes in various rooms. I still haven't taken you through the bathroom. I haven't forgot about that. But when we do that, I think now I'm thinking of it, perhaps what you'll see on my countertop may be considered one of those. So I wanted today to mainly focus on the old book, A Day Book of Comfort and Joy, because when I was cross-referencing June, I noticed that she's really changed it a lot in the new book. And there are a bunch of entries from the older book about the garden, and we just talked about the secret garden in yesterday's video, connecting that story to the secret garden of the soul and weeding back the negative thoughts in our lives, right? So I picked out, there's actually there's 4 different days that are just completely gone from the new book, but they're a nice little tie-in with the gardening theme. She still does have a couple of garden themed entries, and I will talk about them when we get to them in real time, but I'm going to go back to the older book and just read a couple of things about the garden and just discuss them. So one of her entries from the older book is called Being There, Lessons from the Garden. And she goes into, remember what I told you guys back, I forget which video it was, but Dr. Wayne Dyer had done a talk about when you squeeze an orange. So when you put something under pressure, you get orange juice, right? In that case of an orange, because that's what's inside. So, I guess I could tie that into me. When you squeeze me and I get triggered, obviously I have a lot of grief and sadness and tears inside of me. That's what you get when you squeeze me. But in terms of the garden, she makes a good point, not unlike that orange idea that, I'm just reading what she says. Another important lesson the garden teaches us is sowing and reaping, as well as seed time and harvest. Whatever you sow, you will reap. If I plant lettuce, I will not harvest tomatoes. If I sow only positive seeds in my subconscious thoughts of plenty and not of lack. Oh my goodness, what is she doing? Totally showing off. That's my kitty Annabelle, if you're just tuning in. Let me read that again. If I sow only positive seeds in my subconscious thoughts of plenty and not of lack, abundance will sprout in the garden. As for the seed time and harvest, be forewarned. The spiritual time continuum is not the same as time experienced on the earthly plane. A year for us is a second in the spiritual dimension. This explains why an artist who has toiled for 20 years suddenly becomes an overnight success. I have learned this the hard way, by sowing and waiting, then waiting some more. This doesn't mean that the seeds have fallen on stony ground. I refuse to believe this, for I have worked the soil, dug the double ditch, added the compost, peat, sand, and lime. The soil is rich. Some crops, raspberries, asparagus, grapes, require an investment of years before there is a harvest. If my harvest is to be simply abundant in lifestyle, rooted not in the world but in spirit, I must be patient. She's quoting Eileen Cady, who I think earlier in the entry she had said was a New York Times, or a New York. I don't see it. But she's a writer. She's quoting Eileen saying, "You are not living by human laws, but by divine laws. Expect miracles and see them take place. Hold ever before you the thought of prosperity and abundance, and know that doing so sets in motion forces that will bring it into being." I mentioned Abraham Hicks a bunch on this channel, and Abraham uses the analogy of the seeds as well. You don't go out in your garden an hour after you've planted seeds and yell at the ground and say, "Why aren't you growing?" You understand that there's a process and that there is a waiting period. But you also know that you planted that seed. And she mentions lettuce. So she planted lettuce, and she knows that that's what she's going to get. It's not going to be like, oh, what am I going to get? Tomatoes, maybe peppers. So I think there's a lot in that passage that she just talked to us. There are definitely lessons if we think about the garden in terms of our own lives and what thoughts if you consider the thoughts to be the seeds, what thoughts we're putting out there, and the expectation and the peace in knowing that something is coming. That's a part of the manifestation process and what Abraham Hicks would call the art of allowing. It's just that you're letting it go. Your desire's there, you've planted the seeds, and all the forces, like she mentioned spirit, so all of the spiritual forces around us are working together to make that happen. Again, I won't get too esoteric here as far as my talk in other videos about being aligned with what you're wanting, but that would be, as to consider alignment in this analogy, it would be intentionally choosing the seeds, I would say, and knowing and having that knowing. Because if you feel like you can have faith that that is going to sprout into the thing that you planted in its own time, then you can have peace in that, and you can let it go and just allow. What do you have to say about that? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Be sure to leave a comment. In another entry, she calls pruning back, plowing ahead. We did talk a bit about, in that secret garden entry, about weeding and pruning. And she talks in terms of sometimes unexpected accidents happen. And she quotes John Lennon, who I love, about his lyrics about life is what happens when you're busy making plans, right? I'm paraphrasing, but life's accidents don't have to be fodder for the 6 o'clock news, she says. The more familiar ones, divorce, debt, or drug addiction, can sideswipe us with equal devastation. Life's accidents prune us back. Our souls become broken fields plowed by pain. And she goes on to say a bit about actually gardening and pruning and the need for it, and how typically that helps the plants grow. But she does say if we don't do it, that nature will sometimes take over, and there'll be wind and storms that will do it. So nature, just like I said in that video about the grass that was growing earlier in the spring, grass is just going to grow. It doesn't need our help. It may need some water, and we can help it if we're growing it inside, but nature just has a way of working without us, whether we're helping or not. I'll just read her ending here. Make no mistake, I think pain is a wretched gardener. Her cuts stun and sting, but after pruning, preferably voluntarily, we're able to discern what's real, what's important, and what's essential for our happiness. Be of good cheer. Study your plants and study your lifestyle. When the right time arrives, go into the garden with sharp shears. Speak kindly, pray softly, prune back. Now plow ahead. I didn't even really say anything about plowing, but when you plow, that's typically either you're plowing to prepare, right? Or you're plowing to harvest. I've never really thought about plowing in terms of my own life, but I can see that that can be symbiotic. Another entry, the Gourmet Victory Garden, she talks to us about how during the Great Depression, people were very dependent on their gardens. And there are a lot of people that still love to harvest things in their garden that they can eat. And there's so many farmers markets now if you don't feel like you have the space or the patience and time to really do it for yourself. But she calls it a victory garden. And she says, the victory garden is a concept whose time has come, not so much for reasons of thrift as for thrifty pleasure. What is she doing? There's got to be a bug or something she's trying to get. Yes, I can hear it. Oh my goodness. It sounds like a fly. A fly got in. And I don't blame that fly because it's hot out, and I did open the door earlier when I went out to do some changing of the water in the bird bath, which the birds loved. They were taking a bath right afterwards in the nice cool water. but that fly must have gotten in, and it's gonna know its death soon. My cat is a killer bug killer. Okay, back to this. Probably the most convincing argument for a personal victory garden is a homegrown tomato, just now beginning to turn pink on the vine. In a couple of weeks, the quintessential summer repast will brighten up my midday, as it should yours. A tomato sandwich and lemonade. Thick slices of red beauties, slather mayonnaise on Wonder Bread, season with sea salt and freshly ground pepper. She says, my mouth is watering in anticipation as I write. You know, I don't have them this year, but I do always like to have cherry tomatoes, and I don't even cook with them. I honestly just wait until they're ripe and then I eat them right off the vine. That's a summer taste and pleasure that I remember from growing up, but I didn't get any this year. I'm sure I could still get some at a garden center. They just need a lot of sun, really. She says, today's gourmet gardens are cook's gardens. That's because gardening and cooking are complementary, creative pastimes. If you've never thought of the marriage of these two simply abundant pleasures before, one glance at Gertrude Holt's delectable, it's called the book called The Gourmet Garden, will make gardeners out of gourmets and gourmets out of gardeners. And if you're neither, you'll discover two new aspirations. You may not have a gourmet vegetable garden this summer. Gardens need to be planned and planted before they yield their harvest. But you can sow the seeds of this simple pleasure into your imagination for next year. And she did say, and I might not have read it in another entry, she did say something about in the winter sending away for gardening catalogs and seed catalogs so that you can prepare ahead of time. Actually, I think she even said in one of them to do it now, so that because some of the bulbs you may plant in the fall, so you could be preparing. This other one is called Every Woman's Essence of Paradise. And she's talking about indoor gardens in that one. So if you want to check that one out, it's on June 26th of the older book. And she explains in that one about how when she did have an indoor garden, that she tried to make it very fragrant so that it also was tantalizing to the sense of smell. You know what I mean? Let's see if there's anything on that one to say. She's quoting Tova Martin in saying, gardening really has no beginning and no end. In particular, pleasures of the sense of smell really know no seasons. That's true. Bottled under glass, blooming at your elbow, the indoor garden has an immediacy that gardens outside cannot match. The aromas impart an intensity that will not be ignored. What do you guys think? Have you done any indoor gardening? I think it was, or maybe it's in this last one I'm going to mention, she recommended herbs for inside. I can see why, because the herbs in my garden are growing very easily without much care, and I appreciate that because I'm busy. So the last one I want to talk about, and I mentioned this in the June Joyful Simplicities entry, and you guys there were two different people that had said they were looking for rosemary for their garden, and I thought of that when I saw this one that's no longer in the new book. It's called Rosemary for Remembrance, Sowing Herbal Hopes and Wishes. And let me see, I'll read some of the things she said. There is probably more mystery and lore to herbs than any other plants. Each herb has its own history, significance, and use for either cooking or remedies. Herbs are another avenue of creative expression for the apartment dweller because a marvelous windowsill garden of herbs can be grown year-round. If you don't have one, there's still enough time this week to visit a farmer's market and pick up a few plants. Herbs adapt beautifully to container gardens because they don't need much space and are very gardener friendly. A delightful kitchen herb garden of basil, dill, parsley, sweet marjoram, thyme, and rosemary can be cultivated in a large terracotta bowl or catino, a staple in Italian kitchens. The fragrance will perk you up every time you walk into the room, and the fresh herbs will encourage you to be more adventurous in your cooking. That's right. I have some oregano in my garden, and I haven't used it yet. I'll have to get some and put some in, make some sauce or something. Today, sow some symbolic seeds, even if you don't have a garden, as a gesture to ritualize a new life that you're creating within. Actually, the reason she says that, and I skipped a couple paragraphs, is she talked about how in the Native American tradition, you know how they were so, and still are, but they're so conscious of life in every form. And so, for instance, if they were to take an animal's life and eat it, they still are honoring it. And remember in the movie Dances with Wolves, they eat the heart, and that was almost like a hunter sort of thing where it was a victory. But in terms of the garden, if they are cutting back things to use for cooking or other purposes, then they also in turn sow new seeds as they're doing it. So that's why Sarah said to symbolically sow seeds. Yeah. Okay, what else? Ask for the blessing of spirit and the nurturing of the Great Mother, and know that in due time there will be an abundant harvest for yourself and those you love. And she's meaning in terms of your life, not only just the seeds themselves. In search of my mother's garden, I found my own, Alice Walker tells us. Today, this may be your discovery as well as mine. There's really so much tie-in with the garden and life in yesterday's entry, and then these few that I shared from the old book. What do you think? Are you seeing that crossover between the two topics? I see it for sure. Hope you enjoyed those few summaries of, I didn't even cite the days really except for that one, but it looks like in this new book she's really done a lot of altering to the June entries, and I just wanted to give a nod to those garden related ones, and then like I said, I will still touch upon the other few that are left in the book. And I'm wondering, like I just pulled out various things from each of those, but I'm wondering if perhaps she decided to take some of them out because she really did go into a lot of detail about gardening itself. And in the new book, she has some new topics, but maybe she felt like she wanted to say more about simple abundance and the growth and the oh, here we go. She's hiding, or she's coming out up here now. And the principles, which we're talking about on this channel. Remember, it's joy, harmony, beauty, order, simplicity, and gratitude. And I think about the garden, and I think perhaps each one of those could be a part of the garden as well. Annabelle is signing off now. I may have to find that fly and let him go free. I don't really like anything being killed in my house, but she's hunting right now. Any case, thanks for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow for sure, tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And thank you so much for being here. I decided to come on anyway, even though I was having a rough day, but I feel better just in connecting with you guys, and I always look forward to your comments. So definitely leave a comment. There's lots that could be said about this one, and I think you probably think the same. So I will await your reaction. Love to you all, and until tomorrow.